Bringing the vision into a mission. This is Global Mission of Peace with the Goldfish Report on December 1st, 2015. I am Radagast, and I'm here with Louisa, our media outreach.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Steve, our Tasmanian correspondent.
Hi, everybody.
And a special guest, Simon Parks. Welcome, Simon.
Thank you. It's a delight to be invited to speak with you and your audience.
And, of course, the voice of the dragon, the ambassador. Welcome, Ambassador.
Thank you very much, and I'd like to welcome Simon Parks to the Goldfish Report, and I look forward to hear what he has to share with us today.
Thank you.
He's on his way. Hold on a second. Here comes Simon. Here we go.
Well, I appreciate that.
Simon's arrived. Thanks for joining us, Simon.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Simon, there's been so much, you have so much of a background. I mean, you have come out, you've been a UK counselor. This is just a little background for folks who may be familiar with you, but I think most people in our audience are familiar with you. But you've been an elected UK counselor. You have been, you have a very long background. Your mother worked for MI5. Your grandfather worked for MI6. You have been raised by mantids. From what I understand, this is part of your genetic composition, or is this?
Shall I help you out a little bit?
Please.
My mother worked for British intelligence MI5, but she was really working for the National Security Agency, the NSA. My grandfather worked for the External Intelligence Service, MI6, but he was really working for CIA. My background in terms of extra-dimensional entities, not ETs, but extra-dimensional entities, really are Draconis reptilian and what I would call a mantid, but you guys refer to as a mantis, and a number of other creatures. But those are the two main groups that have interacted with me for as long as I can remember. And of course, I have some past life memories which go along. So it's been a very interesting life. Yes, I've been an elected politician in this country, a lawmaker. And I think the main thing I want to say about that was I was elected after I went public. And that's a really big, important thing for me, to go public and tell people what my experiences were, what my background was, and then still to be elected in an election is very important. And for the first few years of my public exposure, then I was attacked and ridiculed by the press. And then suddenly in Britain, the Ministry of Defence, that's the department that runs all the military in Britain, invited me to a tour of a secret space radar base in Britain. I got 3 hours tour around the base, and that just completely changed the whole game, because suddenly the media were confounded. Here is a guy who's said that his family were security service, he sees aliens, he should be the biggest security risk on the planet if he's not completely mad, and yet he's been invited to a top secret radar base for a 3-hour tour. And so that was the changing game. And since then I've had people like the Knights Templars offer me armed bodyguards, armored cars, underground bunkers. It's been very interesting, and it's ongoing. Just get rid of that. It's ongoing, and we are in an important position now because the one arm of the elite have launched the New World Order when the Pope made his speech in America very shortly. It is what we've been waiting for. I know this is the 7th time humanity has been at this position, and it is a long drawn out battle, and I do believe that things are slightly different this time. So thank you. It's not that I like to hear my own story, but I want to be clear. I wasn't raised by reptilians or mantis.
Sorry, I'm sorry about that. I don't know. I know. Okay, so you weren't raised by them, but you've had this relationship with them because
Yes.
I see the pictures of you drawing them. So you've interacted with them, and I remember that what the one person in the photo was indicating that he played a father role to you in some way. Was that correct?
Well, my soul is made up of three different parts. One part is Draconis. It's a third, and a third.
Okay.
The creature that in history is known as Anu, I have a part of his soul in my body. That's why he refers to me as the father.
Mm-hmm.
I have a mantis part in me, and then I have a hollow earth human part to me.
Mm-hmm.
Very complicated, but it allows me to influence off-world planets by my decisions. So every time I pick a mouse up and don't kill it and take it outside and set it free, this teaches compassion to these creatures. So it's a very, very complex, that's one aspect of what's going on here.
Right.
And something that I was made aware of at a very young age. So by the time I was about 7 years old, I had a full, clear understanding of who I was and what my role was, although I didn't know how it would pan out in a 3D setting.
So when you say role, I mean, you're talking about, okay, this is a unique combination. So you have a specific mission here, and the fact that you went public and you were elected after you went public, there's an acceptance of this. I'm sure, with great trepidation you did that because you probably had no idea how people were going to respond. But so you're here for a special mission. You've reached out. I'm part of your Connecting Consciousness group, which you know, and this meditation for CERN, let's say, this was really successful. Maybe CERN is a good place to start because so you're supposed to be playing a pivotal role right now. Is this how you see yourself? Is this when you say you're...
No, I see myself as an ordinary person. I see myself as an ordinary person who stepped into a role that needed to be done, and perhaps I was the only person at this time in the planet's history who could do that. Many people are ready to stand in a role, and as one person is removed from that position, someone else takes the position. It's about balance. Everything is about balance. It's not a game, but it is a game of chess, and we are balancing energies. And at one point, one side takes the initiative, and then at the other, it's clawed back by the other. However, the Earth is moving irrevocably. I had a chat with a director of a multinational American corporation, and the corporations are aware of what's coming, and they are trying to position themselves so that they can survive in the new world. We're not just talking economic change, we're talking perception, we're talking the value base. The whole way that we do business on this planet is about to change. So you're either going to be a survivor and you're going to make the change, or you're not. So my job with Connecting Consciousness was to reach out to people, to offer them the ability to think and do their own research, not to make them do anything, but to set them free. They can decide what they want to do. But with CERN and other objects, these were devices that the human race should never have been given at this time. This is technology that they were not entitled to. They're certainly not sharing it with everybody, and they're using it for the wrong purposes, and are not prepared to let the planet be destroyed.
So, I mean, it's quite a bold statement that you had made in your November newsletter about, Source itself coming in and having this power struggle, this battle. Yes. With CERN. There's other reports. Now, we had, as I mentioned before we started recording, we had Miles Johnston on last week, and we were talking about the CERN issue. It's so hard to discern today, Simon. You really have to have extra special spidey senses to know really and read people's energy, because it's just, you don't even know if you're talking to a person sometimes. So, it's very hard for discernment, I try to say my Spock senses, but I know Spock was very logical, but I think he had good senses. So, I
hear what you're saying. You have spoken to me in code, and I understand what you're saying, and I totally agree with you.
Okay. All right, excellent. So this issue with CERN, there are people coming out trying to say that everything is fine, that nothing happened, and it's more powerful than ever because they switched these lead ion collisions, which make it a much more powerful collision, much more more energy to open up this interdimensional portal. What can you tell us? I mean, I cited your newsletter as one of the reasons why I even went with this story early on. So I felt that because I have a great deal of faith in you and that you have no reason to mislead anybody, anybody, and nothing you've put out has misled anybody thus far that I'm aware of. So I felt confident at least discussing it, saying to people, please use discernment, but at the same time, we're not getting any kind of official story from either the website from CERN or from anyone else. No mainstream media is reporting anything. So can you give us a little update? What do you know at this time about what happened on that false flag attack, during the false flag attacks in Paris?
Well, why would we expect any official response? That's certainly what we wouldn't expect. Anything we wouldn't expect that.
Right.
Well, what I can tell you is that we had a what I would call a meditation, which took CERN out for a period of time. This is a few weeks back now. It was very important because there was a very, very, very auspicious conjunction of stars and planets, which had CERN activated at full power, it would, like a sine wave, it would have ridden this energy wave and boosted the power, which would have opened a portal into the fourth dimension. Now, what they actually achieved was a hole into the fourth dimension about 0.8 of a millimeter. So they couldn't move any objects through, but they did open communications into the fourth dimension. So that's what they achieved at that time. Now, as we move further and further away from galactic center, this portal is collapsing. So they needed to create an energy. Unfortunately, 129 people died in Paris and 500 and something were wounded. That was a sacrifice. Now, it wasn't a pure sacrifice. Now, therefore, the energy doesn't work exactly the same. And anyone who understands, and here's what I'm saying, will know that the manipulation of what I would call dirty sacrifice energy is very different. So this was a dirty sacrifice energy which could not be manipulated correctly by the cabal. What they wanted was CERN to operate at full power, to use this psychic energy release when people are murdered, and to punch a hole through into the fourth dimension. That was the option. And
Simon, who are they communicating with, and what are they going to use this communication portal for now, do you think?
What they've been desperately trying to do is to bring reinforcements in. All the portals, long-range portals, are either blocked or guarded. And the small reptilian group that exists, and there's a small group that lives in the Vatican, or under the Vatican, are trying to bring reinforcements in. And the object of this was either to bring reinforcements in or to let the old guard escape. One or the two. So it was about opening a bolt hole of one sort or another. That's the whole point of this, through to the fourth dimension.
What about our backups? Where's humanity's backups? I want to call them in. Can I put an order in, Simon, with your contacts?
You are the backup. No, you are the backup. The whole point is that the problem with humanity is that it's always sought help from somewhere else. It's always said, who's going to come and save us? Now, if you're source, why would you continually expect to come and help? You want to see the creation that you've made show that it was worthwhile, you're creating, and that it has maintained its strength. So one of the reasons for doing Connecting Consciousness was to show the great creator that humanity was capable of making a statement. It could look after itself, but it just needed support. You are getting help because a lot of the underground bases are no longer operational. Not all of them, but many of them are not. Most of the portals are guarded and blocked, and there is a huge toing and froing of energy at the moment, trying to maintain the status quo. But it's up to the human race itself to make that effort to show that it's worthwhile. Otherwise, it will be scrapped.
Well, that's really one of the things that we're doing, which is why we invited you on the Goldfish Report. You really almost sounded exactly like the ambassador right there, talking about his mission. What the Goldfish Report is about is war on ignorance. And maybe the ambassador wants to come in at this point and kind of explain exactly, we're pretty much doing the same thing for almost the same reason, but maybe you can explain it better.
No, I agree with what Simon says 100%. I've been stating that from the beginning, since I was told to go out, was that don't expect a rapture, don't expect someone to come and save you. You have to save yourself. You know, the good and evil is inside of yourself. It's you who decides to do it. Don't blame it on Satan. And basically you have to, take responsibility for yourself. I mean, the same thing is, like I stated so many times, that people want someone else to die for their sins. They, like in the case of Jesus is supposed to be your sacrifice for your sins. In reality, you have to deal with your own responsibility in front of the Creator. And this is great deception that has been put, unfortunately, by what you could call the Dajjal, or call it the Antichrist, or whatever, is that blame it all on the Messiah, and basically put partners in between you and the Creator. And so it's very important to realize that this is what I said, is that with this thing, with creating projects, with creating self-sufficiency, to get yourself out of the mystery yourself and show that your word is surviving. This is what the whole mission is all about. Because if we are sitting and just waiting to be raptured and saved, and no one do it, then basically we have no chance. So it's important to do a shift and change now, and we have to ourselves come together and disempower whatever it is that actually is set for our own destruction. And as Simon knows very well, is that the people that has created the structures that we are living under today, they will always say that majority of the people are worthless eaters, or not worthy, or they're ignorant, and they're just problem. And in some sense you could say yes, they're correct, but in another sense they were created by these people, so they also have to take responsibility for their own creation. So it's important, I think, for everyone to step out and do this transformation that so much is needed to set this humanity on the right and correct path. And this is basically to disempower the beast, which is which is the code of 666 by 555. And this is what we have been planning for thousands of years, is that at this point of time when this consciousness comes, some people will be able to take this consciousness and someone will not be able, because they are not vibrating on the same same frequencies. It's like yesterday, I was making a joke because some people have been saying that the ambassador is anti-American, and I always said that I'm not anti-American, I'm anti-stupidity and anti-ignorance, and I'm not at all anti-American. But I was sitting watching at this place normally I don't watch TV at all, but I was watching some programs on TV, and some reality shows and so on, and I was horrified, and completely horrified. I was almost going and saying, yes, I am anti-American. I'm not anti-stupid, I'm anti-American now suddenly. But I'm, jokingly, seriously, these programs are on such a low frequency, and humanity has come into such a level that it's shocking. And if we're not changing our consciousness and our behaviors, I don't know what's going to happen with this planet. You understand?
Well, that's a very, thank you for that. And so, Simon, you're saying that we have these changes coming, that there's these huge changes in the way we're going to do business and everything on this planet. Can you just give us a little more, information on that? What do you mean by that? I mean, are we at a point where we're at a crossroad where humanity has to make a decision, and then we're going to go? I thought we were on a positive timeline. I mean, Alfred Weber talks about this. Alfred Lambermont Weber, he talks about us being on a positive timeline. I mean, what is what are the options here for humanity goes in one direction versus another direction if we don't wake up in time? I know you mentioned the timeline. The year 2017 as being a critical year. Can you put this into perspective for us a little bit?
Okay, several questions there. About 15 years ago, we were placed on this timeline, which is a positive timeline. We've switched back about 2 to 3 times prior to that. But this is a positive timeline. But, we need to understand that that doesn't mean that it's all roses growing in the garden. Positive timeline to me means that there's the option for development of the human race. It means that certain destruction is not on the cards unless humans bring it in on themselves. So when I'm talking about a change, what I'm referring to is, and the ambassador is just alluded to it, humans need quite a shock before they will do anything. And that's generally to do with money. and security. So the system is dramatically changing around us, literally by the day. And something is going to happen which will start a chain reaction, which will make many people in many countries really question the whole lifestyle, who they are, what they are, and who they give their authority to. And that is the beginning of some big changes. It's already been predicted, it's already been shown. The question is, how much damage will the human race take before it comes out the other end? That is the unknown. That is the unknown, and only the human race can decide that for itself.
Simon, in all fairness, though, I mean, we really were our genes were, manipulated. It's not entirely our fault. I mean, we have a loving nature. I mean, maybe I should just speak for myself, but I mean, I think most people. And maybe I should just speak for myself. I'm not sure, but I think that most people are good-natured. I think when there's catastrophes or some sort of major natural disaster, people know how to self-organize. We've done it before. Certainly the ambassador's mission here with the projects and people coming together, he selected a certain grassroots level movement here to work with. So these are people who really have a lot of challenges, I think, in some ways to overcome, to try to organize themselves. I think, has humanity, it's not quite fair, to be honest. I mean, I think it's not really fair to say we brought this on ourselves when we don't even understand it. Our genes, our DNA has been manipulated. We have gone through this mass deception because we're generally good in nature. And I think that's what made us so easily manipulated. So I don't think that anybody should save us. I think obviously we need to do it ourselves, but we need to know that we are living in this matrix. And I don't think people realize the extent of the manipulation and the slavery, the indoctrination, the control. I think they're going to really flip out when they realize it, because it's absolutely going to change their perception of reality. And is that what you're saying? This kind of event is going to be something that's going to really question their view of reality? Is that what you're saying?
Well, you actually used the word fault twice. I don't think it's about fault. I think it's how did these people who rule the world get to this position? And that is because they were allowed to get to that position. Humanity is not stupid. It's naive. It's too trusting. People obtained positions of power because they were allowed to obtain positions of power. So in effect, the vast majority of the population allowed these people to take these positions because they trusted them. So if you want to say it's their fault on that line, you can. The reality here is that it's a learning process. Only creatures that face great challenges and then face them and learn from them are those who are divine enough to evolve. And that's what's happening here on the planet. We are being tested in a way that perhaps many people can't understand and doesn't seem to be fair. But the reality is that everybody who's alive today on this planet is blessed because they are here at an important junction. They are here either to play a part or to observe that part. Imagine you go to the theatre and you see a stage play and there are 10 actors. We should say 12, but let's just be normal decimal and say 10. There are 10 actors and one drops down dead. We now have a vacancy. What happens? Do the 9 have to carry the extra work of that individual, or do we turn to the audience and say, who will volunteer to come up and take the position of this person? And that is what's happening here. People are coming forward to take on responsibility and to be brave and stand up. So we can't talk about fault and blame. What we can talk about is we're in this position. What are we going to do about it?
Yeah, Simon, it's wonderful. I think we all have responsibility for ourselves, and I think we have to especially take that and grasp that this time. How do you see, obviously, we here and the people observing this show at the moment are sort of more awake, let's say, than others possibly. How can we accelerate this development, this situation now to help others to wake up? How do you see it? Can we hold our vision in a stronger manner, a vision of an equitable planet? How do you see that we can help?
There are two answers to that question. The first one is that even people who are spiritual but not psychic, there's a difference, forget that you can create reality out of thought. And if you actually maintain a position of truth and a positive wish, you act towards the balance. So if 500 people actually say there will not be a third world war, then the chances of there being a third world war are less. But many people who are spiritual forget that they can create real physical happenings. And when I organized the Connecting Consciousness group meditation, and we proved beyond doubt that CERN was originally taken out, that's the few months back now, that demonstrated to people that you can actually affect physicality with your thoughts. So that's the first part. The second part is I want people to form groups, social groups, so that if the cell phone network is taken down, if Facebook is taken down, if Skype is taken down, people have formed small groups and they can support each other. You know, it's not about going into panic, but it's about actually being strong and not falling into the lies that are going to be had. So form groups, don't try and force views down people's throats. That's not the way to do it. Do it by education, do it by demonstrating yourself and being a role model yourself. And by doing that, then maybe people will start to do their own research. So while we still have the internet, we still have the option to point people in a direction to say, go look at this link and then start your own research.
So you mentioned that they're at the 7. We're the 7th time we're at this juncture.
Yes.
Does that have a significance for you, this 7?
Yes, absolutely.
And also, yeah, you see the 7 number of the 70 years. It is a mandate, okay? And
Yes.
so basically this mandate has gone out, and now we are coming into a new mandate, which we are calling 555. But
Yes.
also it's the same what Simon says, which is very interesting, because I was sitting with a religious scholar 2001, and basically he was telling what's supposed to happen all until today, and even 2017, as he stated, was quoted there, okay? And we know what's coming, and that's why it's so important that the human experiment, which I call it, needs to get out of this sea of ignorance into, to a sea of knowledge. And, it's like the same thing. I was sitting in Hong Kong, and I was very dizzy. And the doctor told me that, I give you an injection and the dizziness will disappear. And I take the decision that I don't want to have an injection. I don't know what is inside of the injection. I don't know how it will affect me. So I did take a decision not to take it, and after a while the dizziness disappeared. But the problem with humanity is that as soon as we find a smallest little thing, we take the decision to take that injection. And when we do that, we're actually consenting to it. And the biggest problem, I think, with humanity at this stage today is that we are claiming to be victims all the time. Like our DNA was altered with or whatever, but even this altered DNA, people can do amazing things. It is basically like making ourselves handicapped by stating that someone else have destroyed us. We have to rise up from wherever we are today and show ourselves, to be having indomitable spirit. And also at the same time, as we just talked about this particular situation here with us, with what's called the grassroots level people, that is also part of a human experiment. It's very easy to make a good businessman making more money. I mean, that doesn't take a lot to do. I mean, if you go to the major people today that you own the major corporations, and you want to support them, they received support during the 70 years, and now they need to make the new alliance for the next 70 years. And the other people who never had the chance, it's interesting to see how they will be able to manage, because people always said to me that I'm fighting a losing battle. You cannot teach followers to be leaders. And what is our mission here is try to create followers to become leaders. And I think that it can do. And if we accept that we are victims and accept that we can not do it because of our bloodlines or because of our educations and so on, I think it's very, very wrong. So I'm very happy to have this discussion with Simon, because what Simon is talking is he's verifying that he's very much in the same knowledge span as myself, and we're talking on the same with the same understanding.
Well, I also, I want to make it clear, though, that I am not trying to make excuses for humanity. I think that there's something to be said. I'm not saying fault. I mean, maybe that was not a good word, but I mean, there is something to be said for the fact that we're not starting out at our best place here. So, we have a lot to overcome to rise to this challenge. And that's really, and I'm all for it.
That's
I'm
a good
on
thing.
board.
The greater the challenge, the greater the victory.
Yeah. I know Radagast wants to jump in because Radagast would like to have a question here with Simon. Did you want to jump in now, Radagast?
Yes, I would like very much to. Really speaking to what Simon always has been saying for a long time, I really feel that from the point of view of the Creator and the planet that we have been placed upon, it's like all the other organisms. It's about how viable we are as a species and how well we exploit our ecological niche. And of course, being as we have a psychological component, we have a little bit more of a challenge than maybe an amoeba does. But still, it's about being able to be viable within the niche that you are put into. And with regard to like some of the, let's call it genetic tampering, when I've gone into deeper meditations, I actually, because of quantum entanglement, I see us as a relatively, really potent, humanity is a potent creature if it realizes itself and it kind of emotionally clears and really steps into its power. And through quantum entanglement, I actually see people like, whatever, reptilian or mantid, I see them when we ascend, I see them taking a ride with us. I see them being affected by our own ascension. And this would spread out at least across the galaxy, if not the universe. And so I in many ways, I don't only see our challenge to just improve humanity. I see it as being a galactic improvement. I don't know whether that's too far out, but I don't know, that's kind of what do you think about that, Simon?
That's very interesting. I predict, as it stands at the moment, that the mantis race will, as we would say in England, would ride on the back of the human shirt tails and get out of the fourth dimension. The reptilians will not. Ascension has to be earned. Now, you're absolutely right that many, many, many thousands of years ago, when humankind was much more connected to the planet, to the water, to the rocks, to the celestial bodies, it forged a covenant with the consciousness of the earth, and thank goodness the earth has never forgotten that covenant, which means that the people on this earth are still loved by the planet and are not seen as external parasites, but are seen as integral part of that planet, therefore should evolve with the planet. There will be a most incredible release of energy at the moment of change, and some entities who would like a easy, quick way to get out of the fourth dimension. If I can just use my hands to describe this, if this is the third dimension here, this is the fourth. What's happening at the moment is it is bulging into our reality because the energies are so dense and heavy. It's a better way if I do this, that the bottom of the fourth is now impinging into the third. That's why so many people across the planet are getting glimpses of another world, very, very, very fleetingly, but it's happening all the time. So it's a cheap trick to try to gain hold of something and to be elevated up. The question is whether these entities are prepared to challenge their own history. In terms of the reptilian, it's their culture, their ritual and their ceremony. Can they let go of some of their values? And if they can, they will ascend with us. If they can't, then they are going to be budded off into a separate galaxy, almost a separate reality, a different dimension, and they will lose connection forever. The mantis, who are far more worldly wise, have played a very different game and are seeking to elevate themselves up because they don't use sacrifice in the same way that the reptilians do. So everything Radagast said is correct. all I would add is that if the reptilians wish to advance, the hands are still at 1 minute to midnight. They still have the chance to do this, but it's free will whether they will or not.
May I
Simon-
follow up just for a second?
Yeah, go ahead, Radagast.
I just want to finish up. I mean, first of all, the word ascension I kind of use like you do, Simon, because it's familiar. Okay, I mean, I'm not really. That's not really where I'm going.
Sure.
And okay, that'll be my follow up for now. I had something else to say, but I lost it. So let Stephen go.
Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, just quickly, just your thoughts. I don't know if it was you or Alex Collier talking about the fifth dimensionals, that they had experienced tyranny on a galactic scale, and therefore they bent time to come back to try and heal what was happening now, or to assist in or understand. What is your understanding of the state of that situation at the moment?
There wouldn't be the first group to try to do that. On another timeline, humanity becomes a grey line, and they have come back and tried to change things. In terms of the fifth dimensional, the Andromedans exist at about a quarter of the way up into the fifth dimension. I feel sorry for them because they have the Palladians to the next level above them, and that's quite a struggle for them. The reality here is we're talking about artificial intelligence. We're talking about a virus that seeks to conquer living organisms and change them. And this is a very important battle. We don't have forest fires in my country, but I understand in forest fires you have to create a fire break to prevent the fire jumping across. This planet is a fire break, and the battle is being fought here because if it is lost and AI becomes successful, it will then infect a huge area. So that is why a number of humanoid species are putting themselves out and determined to prevent this spread of artificial intelligence.
AI, you mean the Archons?
Yes, that's absolutely right.
Right.
What can we do in it? I know, wait, I'll hold on to this. I'm going to have Radagast do that follow-up. He just remembered what he wanted to say before we get too far away from it. And then I wanted to do a follow-up on the Archons with you. Go ahead, Radagast.
Very, very brief. With regards to the reptilians riding with our awakening, let's call it that. That's why I really mentioned emotional clearing of our species, because I really feel that we're meant to be our real sense of being in touch with ourselves is through our feelings, not through the self-animating phenomena of emotions. You know, I mean, feelings to me is a data set that arises from deep within us and really lets us know what's going on with our environment and even how our heart. But I really feel, and I really feel it's kind of the emotionality that is kind of, I find it kind of distasteful myself. So I can really see why that's very distasteful to a proud species like the Draco. I think that if we manage to really get emotionally cleared and get in touch with that rich stream of data called feelings, that then I think that would be quite attractive because it's such an enriching part of existence when it's just the feelings as a data set and not the craziness that can go with when they take on a life of their own, which is what emotions are. And that's what I had to say.
I agree 100% with that.
Well, wait a second. I'm a musician and Steve is a musician, and without our emotions, we couldn't do what we do. I'm a composer, Steve is a singer, and it's with emotion that the music touches our souls. So I wouldn't go throwing the baby out with the bathwater here. We've got to have a healthy balance. But I think, isn't that the key? A balance?
Anything out.
No, I know what you're saying.
Passion. For me, when the music, it's kind of like a contained package that you put into music and it doesn't get mad at, your music's not going to get mad at anybody. It's not going to sulk. When you put it into art, it's really rich. It's in the human condition that it gets a little dodgy.
Okay, I think Simon, that's the key. It's the human condition. It's because that's what the Archons don't have. It's our biological human condition that will allow us to ascend. Isn't that right?
Perhaps I can just explain what Radagast is trying to say here. If I am in the kitchen and I drop a cup or a plate and it smashes, I say, oh dear, that's a shame, because I wish to keep my energy level like that, because nobody can feed off it. If I go and do what so many humans do, which is scream and shout, I create a huge amount of energy wave which somebody can use and feed on. Radagast is not saying that emotions are wrong, but what he's saying is that emotions, if not used correctly, can swing a balance in the wrong way and can be used to feed the wrong side. So what humans are not very good at is controlling their emotions so that the love intent is always there. It's about evening yourself out. At the moment, we are leaving a male-dominated energy and we are moving towards the feminine. The next 26,500 years will take us towards the feminine. But I want to see an end to it's either male or female. I want to find the balance. And this is what this is about. It's about having humanity, all of those emotions, but evening them out. That's what we need. Because remember, it's these emotions that create war.
True, but isn't it also this, so you're talking about the male and female energy, and can you also, I asked Cobra this question, so I want to ask you the same question. Can you tell us about the soul groups, the soul families, and is there some sort of, a reunion between these soul groups, soul families, soulmates, flames, things of that nature, and for what purpose?
I don't fully understand your question. I understand the elements of it. I don't understand why you're asking it, but I don't suppose I need to understand it. What I would suggest is that on this earth, there are billions of people, and many of them are what I would call earth humans. Now, an earth human in my book is a divine soul that's created by Source, and all souls, when they're given, are given the choice what they want to do. So if an energy soul decides it wants to incarnate on the planet Earth, it comes here with no previous experience outside of this planet. It goes into a baby, it is born, it's grown. The problem is this is a prison planet. And Earth humans are not stupid, they're naive, because they have no framework within which to double check on. So that's how they're so easily manipulated and controlled. But if you come from another reality, another dimension, before you incarnate here, you already arrive with what Americans call a BS meter, a bullshit meter. So many people who are awake or different have the ability to know when they're being lied to. So if you come with a mantid soul or a reptilian soul or a Palladian soul, you come with a pre-fixed set of values and ideals. Now, the challenge for these people is when a Palladian man and a Lyran woman have a child, and the child has a 100% reptilian soul. So here in a family is an ability to test and work out whether it's possible for these star races to live together. And when somebody draws down the metagene, their 12 strands of DNA, I liken them to a paint factory. They are mixing a new color of paint, the new human, a little bit more blue, a little bit more green, oh, too much red. So they are creating the energies that will take humanity through to the next change. But unless we can all learn to understand and accept and appreciate each other without being judgmental, then we're not going to get on the right road. So soulmates, twin flames, absolutely. If we have incarnated on this planet hundreds or thousands of times, we will have met other people, maybe in different physical form, and we will have formed an association with. That is absolutely true, as we would have past lives, and we can remember ourselves in different positions. I did a talk, I've done 2 talks at a Freemason temple, where I was asked to do a talk and to talk about King Solomon, and gave a lecture about King Solomon as part of what I was doing. So many times people will have knowledge and they will meet people. You might not say, oh, I remember meeting you in Venice in the days of the Renaissance. Didn't you work for the Vatican back then? But you will say, I know this person. I have a very strong feeling about them. And, the more in touch with your own soul you are, the more likely you are to act on the information it gives you. So
What about the veil? Is this veil going to disintegrate? Are we going to start to have memories, more memories of who we are, where we came from, of our past lives? This has been deliberately kept from us, so it's not helping us to evolve. So is there, like, for instance, is this where the tunnels of Set come through? Is this where these toplet bombs, these black holes? Maybe you can explain about that. I know I don't like when people ask compound questions, but I'm doing it myself, so I apologize. But I kind of see them all related in a sense. This whole thing of the veil and our memory and how it affects us, kind of in the same question with this whole tunnels of Set and what this does to us, how this controls us. It's part of the matrix. Is that right?
I don't believe you have anything to apologize for. The important thing is that memory is held in the DNA. As long as humans think they have to access their brains for memory, they will only access the memory of that particular lifetime. It is the DNA that holds the memory. And if your soul and your monkey brain can actually communicate together, and you can draw down your strands of DNA energetically, you will begin to liberate and release this. In terms of the veil is partly created by humans themselves. In terms of the electromagnetic grid or net that operates over the earth, which wipes your soul memory each time you're recycled, yes, that is going through an interesting change at the moment. And there are, for want of a better word, there are a number of holes now appearing in the net. And if you're a very powerful being, that doesn't mean you're a good being. You could be an evil being. If you're a very powerful being, you can now get through that net and get out of here. So that's a big change that's occurred very recently.
So what is the best advice that you can give to our viewers who are watching if we want to individually, if you want to, bring down your DNA?
I'll answer your question. There are two parts to the question. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I'm going to go in 10 minutes.
Okay.
The first point to make is that we do need to connect with our DNA. And the best way to do that is to understand what your soul family is. So if you're Palladian, your type of meditation will be very different from if you're reptilian. It's very, very difficult for someone with a reptilian soul to do a form of meditation as understood. But I have some methods which would assist and help there. Just as children learn facts in history, what I say to people is, once you understand who or what you are, you make a choice. Do you wish, when you leave this planet, do you wish to go back to the star family you came from, or do you wish to return to source? Every night before you go to bed, you say to yourself, I wish to return to source. And every morning when you wake up, you say, I wish to return to source. Because when your physical body dies, you don't. And the first thing you're going to remember is, I wish to return to source. And you then have the best chance to evade the traps and the tricks that are placed towards you. Now, in terms of bringing down the DNA, we can't really discuss that here. But when people sort of speak to me, then I'm very happy to explain to them, because everyone is different. Everyone has individual histories. But you're right. It is a key point. Many people are sick of it. They've been here a long time and they want to go. And many of us can't go because the job's not done. But when the job is done, we'd like to go home, please.
Simon,
sorry, this has just been a wonderful interview, and I know that you have to go, Simon, and I hope that you will, I know you have only 10 minutes left. Will you come and talk with us again on another Goldfish Report when you have the chance? Because there's so many questions. We really only just scratched the surface, and there's so many more things to get into. And I also want to see how we can work together as a team. We want to help humanity. I know the ambassador reached out because this is what we're trying to do. How can we work together? How can the ambassador, the Goldfish Report, the Global Mission of Peace, what can we do? How can we work with you? How can we come together in a more powerful, energetic union to bring positive changes on this planet? How do you see that we can do that? I'm sorry, Steve, you go next, Steve.
Right, okay. Well, let's backtrack a little bit. When we look at other people who have, for very good reasons, tried to make change, and one of them is Dr. Stephen Greer, and the other one was David Icke, but both made fundamental mistakes, in my view. But let me make it clear that I have the highest regard for David Icke. but both made, in my view, fundamental mistakes. They attempted to use the structure as it stands, and the point is that the structure is designed to protect itself, and if it perceives that somebody's trying to break its structure, it will work against them. So when I created Connecting Consciousness, I didn't use buildings, I didn't use expensive equipment, I don't have bank managers or experts coming in. I have individual people who have a belief in themselves and a belief in the future for mankind, and they work as standalone groups. We are all volunteers. We work on a shoestring, absolute shoestring. I survive on donations. People send me $5, $10. Sometimes people send me more, and every pound or penny or dollar is gratefully received, because it allows me to drive around the country to meet people. The ambassador also talked about super soldiers, and a lot of my work is deprogramming people. You know, the greatest interest here would be when the Rothschilds sent an employee to me to make better, and I didn't know it was the Rothschilds. I thought this individual had sent themselves to me. The reason that they didn't tell me was because they thought that I would refuse to work with somebody, but I would never do that, because when a child is tortured and has multiple personalities and is electrocuted and sees other children murdered in front of it, I would never turn around and say, well, I'm not helping you because you do this. I would always help. So a lot of my work is done with what I call deprogramming people, taking away their suicide programs, their multiple personalities, their demonic possessions, their fourth entity attachments. And that, of course, takes money. So I work on a shoestring. In terms of how we work together, it's about connecting groups of people. It's about sharing information. It's about saying, what are the top 3 things that we wish to achieve for the greater good of humanity? How can we work together to bring a critical mass of energy to bear so that we can push through? But how can we be clever that we don't draw the fire of the negative forces? How can we ensure that we don't take so much damage that we are incapacitated for the next task? So there's a lot of, it's like walking a tightrope. You can't fall to the left or the right, you have to keep going down the middle. So, you know, in a private conversation with you or anybody else, I'm sure we could come up with some really, really useful ways to assist each other and humanity.
Very good. And you know what, let me just see if the ambassador wants to get in here before we start to close, because we're at the 5-minute mark now.
Yes, I just wanted to say thank you, Simon, for coming to. It was a wonderful time to spend with you and learn to know you and understand that we are sharing so much same understanding, and that's a great thing. And also, as you were talking about, which actually is one of my biggest worries, that many of the world religions that we have today is actually looking forward for the destruction of a planet and looking forward for the end times and so on and so on. So I think it's important that everyone realize that, you know, even in the Bible before it was changed, it had an alternative scenario. And that basically is what we are self-creating. And it's like Jesus said, you can shorten the years of tribulation by your own actions, if you're quoting Bible. And I think that that's what's important for us to do, is to shift and change ourselves now and not looking forward for an Armageddon or for a negative thing. And if we have that in our conscious, that we're looking forward for negative things, then that's what's going to come our way too. So I think we need to try to look at things in a positive manner, especially when some form of trauma is coming our way. We need to use that trauma to make ourselves stronger.
Very good. Steve, did you want to have a closing comment? Because I'm going to go around real quick. Simon's about ready. We're ready to wrap up. Yes.
Thank you for being here. Just a quick question. If you were to have a message for the old world order watching this, what would it be?
Change. Survive. Be good.
Right.
Very good. Radagast, did you have a closing comment you'd like to make?
Yes, I like to always bring it back to organic and the creator and our environment. And to me, what's so crucial is, as Simon brings up, is balance. It's not right or left brain, male or female. It's the balance. It's the integration. And even when you speak of monkey mind, or that very primitive ancient part of us, that primitive ancient part of us knows how to connect to the earth. It understands what natural law is. And so to mix that, to be aware of that, and then bring that into the divine mind, which won't be so brutish about natural law, we would then have a divine being that really understands its organic place on the planet. That's what I'd like to say.
And Simon, I'd like to see if you have any final last comments or statements or any messages that you'd like to leave with people who are viewing this before we close.
Over the coming months, there will be many shocking signs, many things that distress people. I would just ask people to remain calm and to try to be balanced, and not to necessarily believe what they see on television. Thank you.
Okay, are we expecting any surprises up in the skies by any chance?
No, I think the surprises have been more on the earth.
They've been on the earth. Okay. We, in the alternative media are really trying to help get the truth out, get the word out, and most importantly, we can't really know whether anything we report is 100% true unless we're there and we're watching it ourselves. And even then, there could be some question about that. But I think what's most important, that the function that we're trying to serve here, is to have people have the conversation about it. To say, well, what would happen and what would have to change in your reality if this were true, and if versus this scenario, and get people to start thinking outside the box so that they can start incorporating other possibilities into their reality. And expand their awareness and conscious awareness. So that's really, I guess for myself personally, that is the only last comment I would like to say. And what I'm going to also tell our readers is that we're going to post links to Simon's website on the description section of this video today. And if you'd like to know more about Simon, you can visit his website. Simon also takes private appointments as well. I know you're booked so far in advance as well. It's a very, very popular service I know that you offer. And also, if you want to follow us, and we're going to continue to follow updates on what's going on, you can follow us on the Goldfish Report on the Facebook page, and also at goldfishreport.com. We want to thank Simon so very, very much for joining us today. It's been such a pleasure for all of us. I know it has. And we so look forward to having you come back and visit us again. And with that, I want to say thanks to our viewers for watching, and this concludes this edition of the Goldfish Report.
Thank you.